And we're official.
It's recording.
It's recording.
We're in double digits now, man.
Double digits. Well, welcome back, everybody, to the Brutally Honest Loan Officer Podcast. I am Stephen Brock with the mortgage firm. We're both from the mortgage firm. And with me today is Derick Brown, as always. Say hi, Derick.
Hello.
Hello.
What's up, man?
Oh, man. How you doing?
Well, it is my 8th wedding anniversary today, and my 4-year-old is stuck at home with me with stomach bug.
That sounds
So I'm doing great.
that sounds
Fantastic.
as long as it doesn't go
Loving
through the
life.
family. It doesn't go through the family, you're good.
Yeah, if we can just keep it to her, we'll be all right.
Just keep our one kid sick.
Yeah. Oh man. But no, it's good.
Congratulations, 8 years.
8 years, man.
So I saw your post the other day, and I am literally because what was yours? The 10th, 9th, 10th?
Are you
Was
talking
it
about
actually?
my anniversary post?
Yeah.
You saw that today because today is my
Oh,
anniversary.
sorry,
I just said that, Steven.
I didn't know if you said it was today. Sorry, I don't. You were talking. I stopped listening.
Oh,
But
good.
me and
That's great.
Nikki's is April 2nd. Will be 8 years also.
Well, we're first. So, yeah, man, 8 years. It's crazy. I wouldn't want to do it with anybody else, though. I got a good one. So I'm happy.
She puts up with you. Is that what you mean?
That's exactly it. Yes, 100%. She puts up with me and she gave me two of the most beautiful, wonderful kids ever. So,
That's what they do.
but we had wonderful dinner reservation. Well, technically, we still have dinner reservations. I was supposed to cancel those, and I have not yet.
Ooh,
But we'll be staying home, and maybe in the next 2 weeks we'll get another chance to go out to dinner.
there you go.
But
Look at it.
yeah, man, how's life on your side of town?
Well, it's good. We don't have the stomach bug, but it's spring break for us. So
Oh, we got that next week.
that's like a nightmare of a
Why?
seven
Because
and an
kids aren't in
8 year.
school, or
Yeah. I mean, they're not here right now. My wife took them somewhere, but it's, 7 and 8 year old running around and saying, hey, we can stay up till 11 o'clock at night and then waking up at 6 because they're ready to go still. And I'm like, oh gosh, just calm yourselves down. It's all good. So let's get to our episode today, which
what
is
are we
is
talking
it
about?
ever a good idea to rent?
Yes and no. We'll give the vague mortgage loan officer answer. Yes and no. Um, no, yeah, that's a big question. Obviously, we're in the mortgage industry, so we're advocates of people buying houses versus renting. But not in every situation. I think that there's always situations that call for either renting or buying. It's just up to the individual. So I mean, geez, I haven't always owned a home, fresh out of high school, going through college. There were times where I rented an apartment with a buddy. Dude, when I think like way back to that, our rent was $664 for the month.
Together.
Like it
Together.
just, and I split that. Like, so everything all included was less than $400 per month. And I just can't even fathom that now, considering what my mortgage and my bills are. Um, and then we left that apartment. Then I moved in with some friends later on. We had a house, so there's four of us, but I think I didn't spend more than $500 for that per month. So, I mean, when I was being young and dumb, yeah, I mean, that was a great option, to rent. I don't even think I had a credit score then. I had one credit card, so I probably did, but I can't even imagine what it was. Um, so I don't know, like for
Negative.
me, figuring out life and stuff like that. Yeah, buying a home wasn't an option, so rented with some friends, try and save money, and then, eventually went down a better path, and then met my wife. We rented a townhome, and then after that, after we got married, we decided to buy. That was our route. But I don't know. What about you? Like, has there ever been a situation where it made more sense for you to rent than buy?
Yeah, until I met my wife, I mean, I was still in the army when I met my wife, but while I was in the army, either I was in the barracks, so of course I didn't have rent then, but when I was,
Yep.
you know, able to get off base and rent a place, it was a couple buddies of mine that rented a house. It always made sense because the time I was in the army, we were deploying a lot. So it was like you were going to be deployed in the next, you know, within the next year, almost all the time, or at least like next 18 months, or you're going to some school, for a couple of months, it could be 3 or 4 months. So, you're paying rent at a place that you don't, even at anymore half the time. So you would go back and forth with that. Same thing. They didn't run our credit back then. Because we were in the army, we just had to sign a document that said, hey, if we didn't pay our rent, they could just garnish our wages from the army, and the army was happy to do
Nice.
so. So it got
The
paid.
army likes taking money from you, but it seems like it's always a stretch to get money from the army.
Well, that's just the government. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
touche.
If
That
you
makes
owe
sense.
the government money, they're gonna come and get it. But if they owe you money, it takes a while. We know this. Everybody knows this. But yeah, so yeah, I deployed a lot, and then when I finally wasn't deploying as much, and I got over to South Florida, I was renting because I did, my time frame was going to be in South Florida 3 years. And, if the market back then, a normal market, so we were that was 2013. So I mean, we
Right.
were just out of that on the very end of the house. I mean, housing market was starting to come back from the
Right.
crash.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I did buy, it would still take about 2 to 3 years before maybe my break even point of if I was going to sell it to pay the realtor fees and all the other stuff with it.
Right. Right.
So it still didn't make sense. I knew I was
Yeah.
leaving in 3 years. Well, so I thought. And that was 11 years ago. I'm still here.
So then you should have bought.
I should have bought that if I knew what was going to happen. But I met my wife. So I rented the first year by myself, met my wife. We eventually rented our own place together for 2 years. And that's when I decided that we decided I was staying, I wasn't leaving now,
Right.
like out of the army. And that's when we bought a house. Because I was more stable. So I always think people have to look at it as like when you're renting, it's your career too. Like
Right.
where's the stability at? With my job, it wasn't the fact of unstable income, but it was unstable location. I knew I was going to be moving
True.
every couple of years, kind of thing.
Well, in every couple of years. So I mean, I wonder like if everybody's gonna be different. But if I were in a situation where I knew I was going to move every 2 years, I think I would still try to buy a primary residence when I first entered an area, and then later just convert that to a rental if I did move and maybe rent wherever I was moving to.
Yeah.
That way I'm building, equity and stuff like that. But that's, sometimes that might be a hard sell if somebody knows just because of their profession that they might be moving every so often. Maybe
Which
they
is
don't
true.
want
I could have had
a rental home.
multiple rental properties now. No, do I want that hassle of having? I wouldn't be local to them. They'd be across the country.
Right.
It's a good point because I could have used my BA loan. I could have done zero money down, very little closing costs, and kept doing it. I know we're talking about renting or buying, but using the VA loan, people don't realize you can have multiple VA loans at one time. If you're moving away, whatever the case is, you get another VA loan. Now your entitlement might be a little lower and what you might have to bring to the table might be more, but you can get multiple.
Right.
Yeah. So looking back at it, maybe I could have done that.
Yeah, but hindsight's always 2020, man.
Exactly.
I mean, looking back, I can always tell you made the right or wrong choice. That's easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Making it in the beginning, it just depends. But, I will say that when I was renting, both apartments and houses, it was easy because if something broke, somebody else came and fixed it and paid for it.
Exactly.
So
Which is a
like
phone call
AC
away
units
and
down, not my ticket. That's on you guys. So I do miss that because now that I'm a homeowner, anytime something breaks, it's coming out of my account. So
yeah.
Flexibility there, and just low maintenance costs. I mean, that's definitely something I miss. And I can tell you one thing, I was not, I've gotten handier, but I was not handy at the beginning of my home ownership journey. And I don't know, I can hang a picture and stuff now. But anything that happens like electrical, HVAC with the pool, I'm still calling people. So I don't know.
So I'm the opposite, and my wife hates it. I feel like I can fix everything, and she's like, just call somebody. But
Well, that sounds like you think you're handy when you're
yeah,
actually not.
I'm actually pretty handy. And now if it comes a bigger problem, I know when I'm like, yeah, okay, I gotta call somebody. And most of the like, okay, the electrician I know, the HVAC guy that I know, I will call them up and be like, hey, this is what it's doing, and they know I'm pretty handy, so they'll be like, try this. Does that work? No. Okay, I'm coming out. Sometimes it's still a simple fix that they could just walk me through it, but yeah, I'm not
I mean,
an
I can do a
expert at
simple
it.
fix.
Yeah,
I can do a simple fix. Anything electrical or plumbing, though,
you scared?
uh, because I feel like one tiny little wrong move and you could have a very big problem.
That's true.
So a small
Very
problem
quickly.
becomes a huge problem because I was overconfident. And I'd rather not be overconfident and just be realistic. Derick, call somebody. Okay.
That's why you have your wife.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, she loves me for who I am, not for what I try to be. So
There you go. There you
I don't know.
go. So I
Um,
know we were both talking about we were really young and we were renting, but I wanted to flip the script real quick on you. And um, within the at least last 12 months, I had two sisters that bought houses. I think they were 20 and 21, or like
Dang,
20 and
young.
22, and bought their first house separately. Like they didn't buy a house together. They bought one house, and like 6 months later, the other one bought the other one. So it's kind of like you don't have, some people are like, oh, I got to be out there for a while and I got to figure things out. Like they had steady jobs. They knew exactly what they were doing. They had money saved, and they bought within their means too.
Yeah.
They didn't go all crazy of like, oh, I need this huge payment or whatever. They just bought like, this is what I'm comfortable with. They're like, this is what I would be renting at, so I'm just going to go ahead and buy.
Right. Yeah.
So
No. I mean, and that's where everybody's different. Like you said, profession, sometimes that can just mean it's going to be easier to rent if you're traveling a lot. Um,
or if
a
your
big
income's
job right now, traveling nurses. They're making a
yes,
fortune right now. Should they own a home? Maybe not. Not if they're going to be traveling all over the place. They're going to work in Massachusetts, then they're going to go to Wyoming, then they're going to Florida, then they're going to Georgia. I mean, if they're doing that at like a month at a time and they're just slowly moving on to the next higher paying job, I mean, keep making that money as long as hopefully you're stashing that money away and not
yes.
blowing it on a $4,000 a month rental. So, but dude, there's also so many times where like, I mean, I think we're good at what we do. However, not everybody gets approved. Simple as that.
Yeah.
And sometimes somebody needs to work on their credit and looking at it, it's going to take 6 to 8 months, a year. It all just depends on what needs to be done. And during that time, you're going to have to rent. Now, what you should do is try to find something cheaper so that you have the ability to save more and save towards, your down payment money, paying off debt, whatever that looks like. But there's been several times where it wasn't necessarily like we would prefer to rent. We just had to for the time being. I've had some people that are looking for a very specific neighborhood that they want to live in, and it's not available, so they rent until it comes available. That makes sense because they want a specific neighborhood for very specific reasons. So that makes sense. So it's just everybody's different. Sometimes it comes down to money, sometimes it comes down to the neighborhood, sometimes it comes down to your profession.
Well,
If
didn't
you're
you
look
just rent recently because you sold your house and your current house wasn't built completely, and you rent for
well,
a
we got
couple of months?
lucky. We got lucky.
Oh, I was
So
telling a fib.
well, you're not and you are. We rented my mother-in-law's beach condo for free, I guess.
Oh, there you go. All right, you're right.
I
That's
got
another situation. Like I have a client now that is a
correct. If
uh,
she did not have that condo, we would have rented a house for 3-ish months, during the summer because our house just wasn't built when we thought it was going to be. Like it wasn't built. Basically, we listed our house because we thought we were getting closer to the finish line, and we wanted to sell our house at a certain time, not waiting till the end of summer. So for us, it just worked out that way. Luckily, we had a place to go. Otherwise, we 100% would have rented either an apartment or a house, until our house was done.
The one thing we're talking about too is this is very local too. Like you said, that one couple was waiting for a certain neighborhood. Certain areas around the country it might be smarter to just rent in that area. That's where you want to be. That the cost of renting is much cheaper than buying. Like you said, the financial side of it the numbers might make more sense. And I'll have to pull it up. I think there's a graph that renting usually in the first year is cheaper than buying, just because all the cost that goes into buying. But then after that, I think it takes it to about year 3 or 4 where buying actually out is because the equity in the house that you have now will outweigh renting.
It offsets the down payment,
Yeah.
the closing costs. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to go rent an apartment or rent a house, usually you've got, if it's, and we'll even go high, if it's $3,000 a month, you got to come up with $6,000 for like security deposit. Might be the same as first and last month's rent or whatever. So call it $6,000 to move in. Well, if you're going to buy a $300,000 house, minimum down payment, closing costs, even if you get the seller to pay closing costs, you're still going to be more than $6,000. So that, like, I understand that graph. But at the same time, that down payment starts with equity. So,
Exactly. You're transferring it
it's
from your bank account to your
to your real estate savings account. That's what equity is. It's just a real estate savings account. And if, like, I've got some people, the younger you are, I think it's sometimes okay, but they might be a little short on funds for down payment, closing costs, all that stuff in their checking and savings, but they've got a decent 401k started. Sometimes it makes sense to borrow from that. Do you know that you cannot borrow from your 401k to rent an apartment or rent a house?
No.
It is for homeownership only. So you can borrow from your 401k. Now, the older you are, sometimes I hesitate, and I'm not trying to like deplete your entire 401k. But again, if that allows you to purchase a home, start building equity, I mean, I think it's a smart financial move. But and I say that, and we've probably said it multiple times on our show. I'm just a product of generational wealth and like the wealth that can come from owning real estate. I didn't do anything crazy. When my mom passed away, I inherited her house. It was not some big crazy estate or anything, just a small 3-2 in Lake Mary, Florida. And that allowed us to buy land for us to build our house on. And when we sold our house that we had owned for 6 years, we had over $250,000 in equity. And that there's no way we would have been able to save that if we were renting. It was a combination of paying our mortgage, just like we would have paid rent, paid a little bit extra, paying down that loan balance, taking care of the house, watching it appreciate over time, and then boom. So that's just my take on it. I would rather see more people get into home ownership, but I do understand that renting makes sense sometimes.
It does. So I think you're right about that. That you got to weigh out the pros and cons of everything. Kind of see what your personal situation is with it, where your life is going. You even have the credit to buy right now. I mean, we could always help you look at that. If your income is stable enough, if your location is stable enough of what's going to go. So that definitely changes everything.
Well, and like, I mean, income, credit, all that, like, for one, honestly, that's probably the number one responsibility of an underwriter is determine stability.
Yep.
Like, there's one time where I had a customer and he had a decent amount saved up, but when we were looking at his income, he didn't work 40 hours a week at this new job, and he had like 16 different jobs in the last 2 years. And they were all over the place, not even in the same profession, and so, like, as far as income goes, not stable. And I told him, I was like, buddy, I need you to stay at this job for 6 months. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. I've never seen somebody with so many different jobs. And dude, like, okay, so, and we'll start from the age of 12. That was my first job as a soccer referee, Publix, Tamco, so 4th Street. I have had 6 jobs my entire life. So, and I am including a short, brief stint at 2 places. Total life, 36 years old, started when I was 12. I've had 6 jobs, and that's it. Most of the jobs, Publix was 8.5 years, 4th Street was like 5 years, and then now mortgage industry hitting a decade.
Yeah,
Like,
about 5.
I think we're stable employees. I think that that's what it says. I
I will
don't
say
know. So
my last 2 jobs, one was 9 years. And one is, what were we at, 24, 5, 6 years?
so I mean, stability is a big factor. If you don't have stability in your life, renting probably makes sense. You know, um, growing family. I don't know about your wife, but my wife wanted to repaint and do everything, nesting, they call it, and I think it's way easier when you own a home to nest because you can change it, do whatever you want. You can, hang picture frames and do all the stuff or whatever that sometimes you can't do if you're renting an apartment or renting a home. They don't want you to poke holes in the wall.
Yeah.
They don't want to, so that was one of the benefits of us owning a home when we had kids, you know,
You can
but
really make it your own by adding, remodeling if you wanted to,
yeah,
with renting, it's a temporary situation. And so you can't really do much with it. That's the thing.
right. Well, and I just think that it's I don't know. There was a customer that I spoke with. They did not get approved, and they had been renting a home for like 10 years, and it was well below market rent. I think they had paid like 900 for 10 years. So basically on rent, they had spent $108,000 in rent over 10 years. And when they decided, like, as the owner of the home was moving, and she had multiple homes all over our area, and so she was just selling off her real estate portfolio, basically cashing in and gonna go retire, and she was gonna sell them at a lower cost than what the house is worth, and they couldn't buy because they didn't have money saved, which is like insane,
Yeah.
insane.
When I tell people too, it's like, okay, so like we've been when you're renting, add a couple $100 to that rent, like, and make that your rent payment. Like if it's, I see people renting at 2,500, they bump it up to 3,000 in their head. That's what they budget for. They take 500 and put it to savings every month.
Right.
And it just sits there and keeps building and building and building until it's time for them to buy. But you do get these people that,
After a year, that's $6,000.
yeah,
That's a lot of money.
or you get people that rent and they rent. And granted, every circumstance is different, but certain areas like you do have to max. I don't even know what you could get for a $3,000 rental here now. I've seen some people. I'm looking at their. Sometimes we look at their stuff like, okay, we're going to have a rental to, you're like a payment shock with these people. And I'm like, you're renting for 4,500, like, or 5,000 or 6,000. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, I've got a buddy that just closed on a house, a very, very expensive house, but he was spending $15,000 a month renting a very nice house, but 15 grand a month. Now he's making pretty good money, but still 15 grand a month. That's
The calculator.
$180,000 a year that he has nothing to show for
Yeah.
in 1 year. In 1 year. Stupid.
So, does it make sense to rent after we call this person spending all that money to stupid with it?
Well, yeah, not in a yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
saying that guy's an
He's
anomaly.
not stupid, but the fact that like he's just like stupid money that he's throwing away.
Well, technically, he could have rented something similar for much less. But
does it make sense to rent? It can.
sometimes,
Like we said.
yeah, everybody's different, man. So I think it just depends on that individual circumstances. I just hope that they have the ability to save while they're renting. That would be my, biggest thing to consider. But we all know that rental prices are going up too. Although I think recently stats showed that they had kind of plateaued a little bit. They were on the up and up and up, and now they've kind of settled off or whatever, which is a good thing.
During COVID, I mean, when you had an influx of people, at least down here, that it was definitely going up, but it was supply.
Yeah, they're skyrocketing.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
Now it's a little bit more stable with everything. So I think it's, and that market that you might be a little bit more stable on what's going to happen. Like they're not going to just go from 3,000 to 4,000 in 1 year. Maybe it goes up a little bit. So
right.
like we said, yeah, renting can make sense. Like you said, it's your personal situation of what you're doing that doesn't make sense for you at that time. I just wish people, like you said, save money and just make informed decisions with it all.
Yeah. Live within your means, whether that's renting or buying a house. Live within your means. So, all right. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Well, thanks for joining me today, Stephen. And for everybody listening, this is the Brutally Honest Loan Officer Podcast. Thank you for listening. Remember, whether you're renting, buying, or somewhere in between, make sure you're making the choice that's right for you. Stay informed, stay honest, and we'll catch you next time. This is the Brutally Honest Loan Officer Podcast. See you next time.
See you guys.